Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Secure Your Future, Fully Managed Backup and Recovery. We still see some people coming in and getting settled, so we're going to give it about another 30 seconds, and then we'll get rolling. Thanks so much. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Secure Your Future, Fully Managed Backup and Recovery. And we're going to unpack what that means as we get through this webinar. It's true what we say down there in the subhead. Hopefully everyone can see the screen. It's never been easier to deliver your own backup service. And I will start by telling you that this webinar is intended for an audience of managed service providers and resellers. Let's get into it. If you're not a managed service provider or reseller, I do think you'll find some things interesting and useful. We're going to talk a little bit about our backup service and how it works. But if you have questions at the end of it, you may want to explore further by getting on our website or reaching out to us. So stick around, everybody. My name is Greg Newman. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Zadara, and I'm pleased to be joined by Mark Levitt, our Senior Director of Product Marketing. Hi.
Good morning, Greg.
The two of us are going to walk you through an agenda that is all about backup, but not just about backup, about the business of backup. And let's start by saying this. If you're not backing up, you may not be in business.
Right, yeah. The business end of backup is, do you want to still be in business? And I think anybody who's been in and around backup or even in and around storage and businesses intuitively understands this, but these are some really good data points if you want to just draw those out. I personally have had experience supporting customers in that middle quarter there, the 94% catastrophic data loss. And I can tell you there is nothing a lot worse in the business world than watching a company that cannot recover because they've lost their data.
It's a shocking statistic, 94%. And here it is, we put it front and center because we want everybody to know just how important backup is. And I suppose you might say that's part of our mission here. And you know, every business is like this to some extent. You know, you don't just get into business to be in a business. You care about something. And in this case, companies having access to their data securely and efficiently.
Well, that and especially if you take the first 2 points together, and because the other thing we talk about in other contexts is ransomware.
Oh yeah.
Right, and ransomware is a disaster, so that's part of your disaster protection scenario, part of your backup scenario.
Yep.
And 60% of companies have experienced data breaches, but we've also been watching the numbers on ransomware.
Yeah.
And you know that'll put you out of business just as fast.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So let's talk a little bit about the business of backup and recovery. And I like to talk about recovery. We talked about this the other day, Mark.
That's right. Let's really talk about recovery.
Yeah.
Then figure out the backup.
Backup's just a means to an end. But what's interesting here is just how fast it's growing.
Yeah.
And of course, we're specifically talking about the cloud backup and recovery market, the idea that the cloud can play an important role. And we're going to talk a little bit later about cloud and what that means and how, you know, there's a hybrid sort of model, you might say. But look at this ramp. So for anybody who's contemplating adding a backup service to their business,
the demand is there.
Yeah, I agree.
And just there's probably two things going on there, right? I mean, well, maybe three. There's the expansion of cloud in general, so we all know that.
Yeah.
But it's also the expanding threat profile.
It's true.
And the recognition. And again, ransomware is probably in that number there, especially towards the latter numbers.
Yeah.
Or actually in the middle of this chart.
It is, right? So here we are in the middle of the chart. We're hitting 2020 here next couple of weeks. So why? Why do we want to do this? We've come up with 3 reasons. I think there may be more, but I think these 3 are pretty good. Obviously, adding recurring revenue. I think that a lot of people are talking these days about moving to a model, if they're not already doing it, that's recurring.
Yep.
Backup, it just fits squarely into that
Right, predictable income is a really good thing, and one of the reasons that it's sticky is that if you're providing that backup as a service, then you're also holding all those backups.
Yep.
Right, or holding at least a fraction of the part that are online, and that makes for a deeper, stickier relationship.
And points 2 and 3 are somewhat related in that point number 2 is increasing wallet share, any existing customers or any customers that you may be bringing on, being able to do more for them. That's a good thing, right?
It is a good thing, and because of when I mentioned threat profile, the growing threat profile, because of that, it also means that discussions of backup, and in particular recovery, and we'll fold sort of disaster recovery as sort of part of that spectrum of protection that you need, is that has much higher visibility than it would have had like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, maybe a backup discussion was taking place at the manager level, maybe the director level, and CIOs were aware of it, but it was necessary evil. Now, understanding how you can recover from those breaches, from ransomware, as well as from the more, dare I say, mundane, hot flaming rock falls out of the sky kind of problems, that now has very high visibility and top level of approval, right? It's mandated by boards of directors.
Right. It's not, backup is increasingly seen as a strategic imperative.
It's a strategic existential imperative.
Yeah.
And so it's wallet share with higher visibility also.
And that leads to the last point, which we don't need to dwell on because I'm sure everybody gets this one. Customers in new segments or new geographies, how great to have an offering like this.
Everybody's got a backup.
So talking about recurring revenue, I thought it might be useful to show a slide. This is an actual Zadara partner. They added 12 customers in 18 months. They grew the monthly recurring revenue to over 170,000 starting from zero, basically starting from one customer, right, to 12. And it's really exciting. And sometimes when you're new to this business, this game, of course, we've been doing it for a long time. 2011 we started.
Yep.
If you're new to the recurring revenue game, here is a clear illustration of just how fun this game can be to play, because you get every month you start from where you were, and you're not starting from zero.
Right. Those aren't transactional sales revenue numbers. Those are monthly recurring revenues that we're talking about.
Yeah.
On that chart.
So it is compelling. Backup can be, like we just talked about, can be a powerful source for this kind of recurring revenue. And I'd like us to talk then a little bit about what does it take to have backup? What does it mean to have backup? And I promised earlier on our title slide that we would talk about fully managed. And I think that's very important for those MSPs out there in the audience today who may be contemplating adding backup, but perhaps don't have the bandwidth or the skill set in-house, or just frankly don't want to add to their burden. Having a fully managed service might be something very attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a key to what Zadara brings to managed service providers, is the ability to bring on new services like a backup as a service, like a disaster recovery as a service, without having to build up your own infrastructure and your own expertise in running that infrastructure. What our partners are extraordinarily good at is the customer-facing operations, addressing the market, providing support to their customers, and where we help them get into business fast with minimum risk is by providing the back-end capability.
So we're the partner to the partner.
Yeah, we're the partner to the partner.
And we have 3 components on this screen. We're going to talk about how we simplify backup in the next few slides, because we're going to show in detail what we do. So I don't want to dwell on that here, but it is important to point out that it really is simplified because it's in a single service, and we do a number of different types of backups within that service, and we'll talk about that. The OpEx model is just a given. If you're not OpEx, how are you possibly going to be doing this recurring revenue stuff? But let's be clear, we know this from long experience, you can't do an OpEx model like we offer without having that first component. If we don't have a single service offering the different types of solutions, it's very hard to ship to our partners, which is what we literally do, a single service and then be able to bill for it in an OpEx model. Yep. It doesn't work. And the advanced security, got to mention it. It's absolutely critical these days.
it goes to that, we're back to that threat profile again, right?
Yeah, yeah. So as Zadara was building its own business in 2011, we were building it from the ground up with our own proprietary software to meet the needs of exactly this type of an audience. The idea of working with and through partners to give them a cloud-based solution to use cases like backup.
Well,
that's exactly it.
Yeah, and because we are in fact a cloud storage provider, we carry that protection profile. We do all the required testing that you listed there, and the penetration testing, all that kind of thing, and then that extends to the security, the storage security that we extend to our partners as well.
So we understand your requirements because they are our requirements as well. Yeah, I agree. Okay, I promised we'd talk a little bit about the kinds of backup we have available, and I think it's logical to start with this, right?
Yeah, so everybody loves a simplified diagram. There it is. You have any questions?
True, right? Here it is. Backup to object storage.
Right. So the key here is we're showing the primary workload running in the say in a virtualized environment, running against primary storage in Zadara. Greg might not like it when I say this, but it doesn't have to be Zadara for the primary storage.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't.
You can go ahead and sell these backup services into any environment, but it works better with Zadara storage. And one of the things that's very good is that, for instance, in our case, we have a direct backup to object capability.
Yep, built in.
And that certainly, it's a great solution for a simple backup. It's very quick. It's very space efficient. It's flexible in that it can use our object storage. It can use S3. There are a lot of options there, and then you can do all the fancy replication depending on which software suite you're running to make sure that you have the required multiple copies on multiple media types and some of it offline, preferably air gapped.
Let's talk about how, as we get more sophisticated in our view.
Here we go.
Let's talk about a more sophisticated backup environment. What would we be looking for?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. We were about to. Okay. So one of the things you want to have is the multiple tiers. So we'll leave the primary storage on the left is like, okay, we mostly all understand primary storage, so we're not going to go into that a lot. But when you back up, you have tiers, just like we talk about in primary storage, where you want your initial backup copy to be pretty fast because you want it to happen fast. You want to be able to access it quickly within the first 24 hours. The numbers say that if you're going to access a backup, the chances are very high that you'll do it within 24 hours of making it. So you want to get your initial backups onto fairly fast medium. Then you can migrate it to lower cost, higher capacity, lower performance media. And what we're showing here is that with Zadara as your backup partner, you can actually satisfy all of your tier requirements from a single infrastructure.
Pretty clean, pretty streamlined.
Pretty streamlined, all the way down to object storage for your relatively cold backups.
And what I think is interesting here, and I'm proud of us, and so I want to point it out, is that as the needs for backup have grown more sophisticated, as people have recognized they need to do the kind of things you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And in many cases, if they aren't using Zadara, they find that they have to use multiple services and multiple software packages and things. For us to be able to offer a simple and streamlined approach, I'm really proud that we've been able to put this together.
Well, and there are some interesting things that we do here that are a little different. As I said, in our own backup, very simple backup approach with backup to object storage, and certainly with the sophisticated packages like Commvault and Veeam, Zebra and Zerto, getting it down to object storage makes a lot of sense. But because we can supply all of the layers, we can put all of those wherever you want them. So if you want to back up to a cloud, great, do that. If you want to hold on your, as a service provider, if you want to hold on your premises or on alternate premises, your any of those tiers actually, you can do that. And we have also all the tools to do the replication between the sites.
Let's talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up because
Funny story.
Business continuity is, of course, an even more advanced concept in some respects. We bring tools like the ones we're looking at on screen here, and I figured we might talk for a few minutes about some of this because I'm sure the more sophisticated users out there have these in mind. They're already thinking about this.
Right, and again, I keep mentioning ransomware simply because it's in many ways one of the most challenging things to address. Addressing floods and earthquakes and things like that is a little simpler. So having the ability to quickly make point-in-time copies, which we do with snapshots and we do with clones, means that you can do it frequently.
Yeah.
So we're improving what we call the RPO, recovery point objective. If you have to fall back to a backup, or even directly to a snapshot, you can fall back very quickly and you won't lose much doing it. That's the objective, that you can run those snapshots very quickly. And we have customers who, in the ransomware case, have survived ransomware attacks because they were running these snapshots every minute or so.
It's funny you say that. We do have a number of customers that come to us and thank us and tell us the stories and all that. And it's fun to hear these stories. Very few of them want to publicize.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about it publicly. But they are, as you say, effusive in the appreciation for what this gives them. Now, remote mirroring is another approach where we actually take those snapshots, those point-in-time copies, and we can put them pretty much anywhere on the globe, really, if you really want to. So they can go into our clouds, they can go into your premises, they can go into colos, they can go whatever you want, and that is how you get that protection against those geographic events. So again, we're talking about floods, earthquakes, fires, things like that.
Yeah, and talk about multi-zone. I love what we do here because I just love how much control we give.
Right. So what we call multi-zone high availability is the ability to build our virtual arrays across multiple availability zones within a cloud provider. So if you're not familiar, use AWS as an example, since they're such a big part of the market. They have regions, right, which is where they're located in several locations. And then within those regions, there are multiple availability zones. And we can put components of the storage available into multiple availability zones, such that even taking out a whole building at a cloud provider site, let's not pick on AWS only, you will maintain your data availability. So it's a very high level of availability for these kinds of use cases.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked increasingly about backup and our architecture and our solutions and what's available and how we can work. I thought we might take a moment, take a pause, summarize a little bit about Zadara and what we do, and then I know we want to dive in a little more deeply into the technology. What's really going on under the hood? And so this will be fun, I think, because I'm sure that given the nature of the audience, I'm sure there's a lot of technology-oriented people out there and a lot of good questions.
Sure.
But first, let's point something out. We are, in fact, the industry's only complete enterprise storage as a solution platform. And people ask us, what do you mean by complete? Well, let's talk about it. For starters, we're built from the ground up to do this.
Yeah.
And nobody else has ever managed to do that.
Right.
They've cobbled together, whether it's legacy providers that are cobbling together service offerings based on their existing boxes, none of which are integrated with each other. You can't, in other words, have a single service offering multiple storage types.
Right, and a key piece that is the dedicated resources that are in that first box, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. So
yeah, that's a fun one.
I won't dive in right now, but that especially for a managed service provider, there are just really large advantages there for you. So MSP people, just hang on, you're going to like it when we get there.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about our OpEx model. I just will say one more thing about it here. Scaling down does happen.
Yeah, it just isn't talked down. It isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
Everybody will scale you up.
Yeah.
But if there are cases, backup probably isn't the case where you look at scaling down, because backups tend to grow sort of infinitely unless you age them out. But in other storage use cases, it's not uncommon to have projects, for instance, that exist over a period of months or years, and then you want to scale, and then you want to wind them up. And then you figure out what to do with all the storage hardware that you bought, repurpose it, and do kind of. It's like you don't deal with that with us. When you're done, you can just say, okay, we're done.
Yep. And
and your bill goes down.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit later about upgrades. But in fact, in some cases with upgrades, your bill goes down too.
That could happen too.
We're not promising all the time and every time, but it is funny to watch. Of course, we run on commodity hardware. We have with our proprietary software, we bundle it all together. And on occasion, when hardware makers come out with new drives, higher capacity, better performance, and cheaper per gigabyte.
Yeah, the price per gigabyte is, I mean, you know what those price curves do. And again, huge deal for MSPs. We have MSPs partners that have been with us for years who have gone through this several times.
Yeah.
Right, where they keep upgrading their hardware to get better price per gigabyte. It keeps them on the optimal price curve.
Yeah, exactly. All right, last thing here, 100% uptime SLA. We get this question quite a bit. We were at reInvent last week. A lot of folks asking about this. We mean it.
Yeah, we do, and it's it's really quite a contrast to all the cloud. This isn't just about since you're talking about reInvent, it's not just about AWS.
Right.
It's everybody and also other storage providers who we won't necessarily name, but are well known. When you look at their SLAs for cloud-based storage, they tend to run in 4 nines SLAs. We run 100% SLA. Yep. And if you look at the agreements, what's in the pricing, and the cloud vendors are generally pretty upfront about it, what it is, and to their credit. So it'll be like limited to 20% of your bill, and it has to occur for so long, and all this. That's not the way we work it.
Right.
We guarantee 100% uptime. There's no distinction between planned and unplanned.
Right.
And you get credit for your downtime against your bill. Period.
From the first minute, right there. Okay, now we're at the heart of it.
Right.
Because our system has some real advantages, like you mentioned earlier, and I think this slide really can help demonstrate specifically what those are. So let's talk about the multi-tenant efficiency with the single tenant experience, right? And take it away. Show we have 3 customers, 3 quote customers using our storage stack right now. Let's talk about what they're doing.
Right. So the thing to understand about our architecture is we create these things called VPSAs, or virtual private storage array. And actually each of those words is pretty key, especially the virtual and private piece. Virtual, if you look at that diagram, it looks, if you've been doing server virtualization, you'd look at a diagram like that and you go, yeah, I kind of get what's going on there, right?
Yep.
It's like, private means that all the resources that are assigned to these virtual private storage arrays, when they're created or modified, all the resources in terms of CPU cores, memory, drives, cache, networking channels are dedicated. They're not shared. And when you have dedicated resource, you get a couple of key advantages. The first one is you get consistent performance. You don't have to worry about what we call the noisy neighbor problem, where somebody else in the environment is using the resources aggressively, and it's impacting your performance. That simply doesn't happen because your resources are yours. And when I say yours, I'm talking about on a virtual array by virtual array basis. So we have 3 in this case in this diagram, and each one of those, none of those can unpack the other because they're on their own resources. So you think about that from an MSP perspective.
Yep.
Right. What that means is your customers aren't complaining about wonky performance.
Yeah.
Right.
What you promise, you can deliver.
Right. What you promise, you can deliver, and you're going to take less unhappy customer calls. Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty basic. There's also a security advantage, which is because you're not sharing resources, you're not leaking information between arrays or customers. And that provides a lot more security and privacy for your customers.
So I know that we have some technical bits over there, the specifications on the left.
Yeah.
this is what you'd expect. I mean, if you're running an enterprise storage
Yeah,
of any kind.
it's kind of the how, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so we're running on x86 servers. We do some hardware acceleration for our storage. Again, they're dedicated drives, SSDs, SATA. We also do SAS on hard drives, NVMe now.
Yep.
On the SSDs, the new generation of SSDs. High performance networking and data protection and private dedicated networking channels. So that's just kind of here's the acronym and buzzword piece. But the upshot is what's in the title, right?
Yeah.
It's the dedicated, it actually is the header on this one. It's the multi-tenant efficiency. This is how we get it.
Yeah.
Right? That's how the economics work. And the single tenant experience, everybody gets their own performance and their own privacy.
And this is why I say we're at the heart of it, because really, if you're an MSP and you're thinking about offering backup as a service in particular, or storage as a service of any kind, having this kind of an architecture is absolutely ideal. And you're not going to find this architecture anywhere else.
Yeah, and that's the key, and that's why there's a patent on this. This is what nobody else has, and outside of very large, very expensive storage arrays, the ability to do true multi-tenant is just not there. So it gets cobbled together.
Yeah.
And so, you can do network partitioning and things like that, but it doesn't actually solve the problem of dedicated cores and memory and drives.
And thanks to our OpEx model, you can avoid the cobbling together, right? And I know there's a certain segment of the audience, and I do this in my own life too. Sometimes you want to build it. You want to build something.
They say, yeah, but this is a business.
But this is a business, and you need to think carefully about it. And thanks to our OpEx model, it's a best of both worlds. You get all the power and control that you want out of an enterprise storage array. You're not going to have to pay the high prices to go and buy something like you mentioned, Mark, that's expensive.
Yeah, extraordinarily expensive. Right?
And you get the security of knowing you've got a partner there with you, helping you run this thing. So it really feels like the right fit for a business that is an MSP that is looking to offer this. Want to mention a couple of things. We talked about security earlier. There's something we didn't mention, however, and that is in-flight and at-rest encryption. And guess what? You have the keys.
Right.
Your customers have the keys. We don't.
Right. Please don't lose them.
Yeah.
Because we can't help you.
We get this question a lot. Oh, you guys manage the storage. You manage the data? Nope. We're not on the data layer.
Right. It's your data.
Yeah. It's also, but speaking of management, right, it's also important to know you have a complete management, a web-based management interface that if you're familiar with running storage arrays, you're going to love this. This is just everything you'd expect.
Yeah, and we get that, where we really get that is like in demonstrations and trade shows where we show the interface, and a storage admin kind of will walk up there and go, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, I get it.
Yeah,
right.
It's funny. Like, the brevity of that interaction tells me.
They just look at the screen for a couple of minutes and go, yeah, okay, so what if I do? Yeah, okay, good, we're good. I got it.
Yeah.
It's it's a storage management screen. The fact that it's a virtual array, right, is really doesn't matter. It manages like an array. So your storage admins can then create the usable storage that meet their business requirements.
Now, our interface has a few neat tricks up its sleeve. One of them is chargeback on actual usage.
Yes.
So multiple clients can get, keep separate.
Huge for MSPs.
Yeah.
Right? This is actual chargeback, not showback. It's you can actually do full chargeback. And
this is important and it's obvious, but let's state it. You can manage all of the virtual private storage arrays from one interface.
From the interface, and that's exactly right.
So this is software that's been architected with service providers in mind. We understand your needs.
Absolutely, because we use it to operate our storage clouds.
Yes, exactly right. We do it ourselves. All right, so we talk about it as a platform, really. This is a platform to transform your business. Let's hit a few of the key points here. It is a fully managed storage service. It's not a lease.
Nope.
There's a lot of talk out there about service offerings, and if you look at them, they're glorified leases, basically.
Yeah, or rental programs. Yeah.
Yep. We mentioned already full enterprise functionality and control, and really, when you think about that, it's everything we've been talking about in terms of all the features and functions, block, file, and object in a single service. I can't say enough about the idea of a single service. I just see it time and again, how much this comes into play in a service provider environment.
Well, and I want to tie that into something you said earlier, when we're, again, talking about the MSP model, is that backup as a service, which is what we've been talking about, is one offering.
Yeah.
But you have the capability of then layering that, maybe in a new customer environment, you lead with backup as a service because everybody needs backup, and certainly in the and we know in the government space and the SMB space, there's a huge demand for backup and also cloud-based DR.
Yeah.
It's a great place to start, but know that with the same partner, with the same infrastructure, you can layer additional services on top of that.
Yeah, it's exactly right, and it's nice. We talked about these other points. It's important. Dedicated resources. We know what that means. It's safety and security and performance.
And performance, predictable performance, happy customers.
Grow and shrink.
Yeah, so this, and again, for the MSPs, listen up.
Yeah.
Right? This is how we take the risk out for you launching new businesses.
Yeah.
You don't have to pre-buy big equipment. You don't have to train up a staff. You just have to say, I want to do this. You call us, we set it up, and then you pay for what you use. And if it goes up, then you pay more. Great, you're making more money. If the business isn't going well, nobody wants that to happen, and we don't see it happen very often. But if it isn't going well, you find out you have to do some tweaks, and it goes down. Fine, your consumption goes down. You pay less money.
Yep. Periodic hardware and software upgrades, no data migrations. We said it, but let's be clear. We have customers that will upgrade from time to time. There's no special ceremony. There's no new contract. It's just calling up and saying, I just want the new stuff.
Yeah, and again, for our MSP peeps here, right? Just consider what that means, right? If your environment is running on mixed hard disk and flash for hybrid performance, and you want to upgrade to flash, to all flash, or you want to upgrade to NVMe, since that's a good proof point now. When it says periodic, I actually take objection to the term periodic. It's not periodic, it's on demand.
Right.
So as soon as we release new hardware, you can request it, and it doesn't cost you anything to get that upgrade.
Yeah.
Now, if the recurring cost on the underlying hardware that you want to upgrade to is higher, then you'll pay more. If it's less, and this is what Greg was talking about earlier, it frequently is less actually. Then your bill actually, not only did you not pay for the upgrade, but your monthly bill goes down.
For the same data, right?
For the same capacity.
Now, of course, we joke. This all works out very well for us in the long run.
Right. Yeah. Don't worry about us. We've been running this model for a long time.
Yeah.
And it works out well for us, and it works out well for you.
Yeah. Last thing, we have support centers on 4 continents. Yep. We are a worldwide company. 24/7 phone support, therefore, is available, and the remote monitoring is taking place all day, every day. And that's part of what we say when we talk about service. This is so often we hear people talking about storage as a service, and for some reason the word service gets forgotten, or it's not, thought of as being important. It's the key word.
Yeah. Well, and part of the problem is I think that people think of service as support.
Yeah. Right.
And support is there, right? I mean, again, this 4 continents, 24/7 plus really, are there to handle any issues that you have. But it goes beyond that. If you need help doing something, if you need help planning, if you want to do a data migration, if you want to help a customer move to a cloud or set up something complicated like a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud environment, then this resource is available to you to help you plan and execute those kind of complex moves, and it's all part of the service.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny, and we have customers that come to us for our features and functionality. And about a year in, of course we do our reviews, and we like to find out how things are going. Invariably, and you know this, Mark, invariably they say, wow, we came for the performance and the features and the function, but we're staying for the service.
Yeah, because the service, I mean, it's not just wow, it feels really good to have good support and service, because it does. I mean, we all know that. We all like to offer it, and we all like to receive it. But this is a business we're talking about. Yeah. And if you're in the business of providing managed services, to be backed up by that kind of capability means that you don't have to invest as much in your own infrastructure.
And that's what we hear from customers, right? Thank you very much. I can redeploy resources.
I can. That's exactly right. I can redeploy those resources in areas that are strategic for me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what we want you to do, because we got this piece covered.
So this is why we say that Zadara was built from the ground up to be a partner to our partners, that we are a resource for MSPs in particular to offer backup as a service and storage as a service more generally in a model that aligns extremely well with their business needs. Now, don't take our word for it. We have a few customers, right? Hundreds, in fact, around the world, thousands of EPSAs running currently around the world, many, many petabytes.
Right.
And in a variety of industries as well. And these customers are running different workloads. They're running in different environments. Some, full hybrid cloud plus on-prem. About half our business people are doing it on premises.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because we maybe skated by that one before, which is like the same model is available either on premises, in a colo, or cloud adjacent to support public clouds.
Yep.
It's the same operating model.
Right, and it's the same experience. It's literally the same equipment, it's the same service, everything. All right, so don't take our word for it. And by the way, if you want to read some of the stories about these companies, or many of them, please go to our website, because there you will find case studies of all types. Even better, if you want to learn more, we recommend trying it for yourself.
Yeah, give it a go.
We like to say, and we think it's funny, but it's not a joke, the closer you look at Zadara, the better we appear. And of course, what we mean by that is that we know that we have the kind of depth in terms of functionality and service expertise to satisfy even the most challenging requirements. And so please take a closer look. We look forward to it, and we will be with you every step of the way in a free trial. It's not just about an automated free trial. It's us working with you.
Right.
And
the same services team is onboarding you for your trial, and so you get to try all the aspects.
Exactly. Well, that concludes, Mark, our presentation. We're at 37 minutes. We did pretty well today.
That might be a record, actually.
I'm very impressed with us. I hope everybody on today's call has enjoyed it. And we have a few minutes left. I know I'd like everybody to get a bit of their day back. So I think if we could take about 8 or 10 minutes and talk about maybe some of the questions people have.
Yeah.
That might be good. So please, if you have questions, you can use the questions panel inside of the GoToWebinar interface and ask questions. Let's start. Wait, I see a few popping up now.
Well, you asked and they showed up.
Is block storage included in the single service backup scenario? Earlier you showed Zadara object storage sitting in the cloud. Thank you very much for this question. Let's be clear.
Yeah, right.
Block is included, file is included, object is included in a single service.
Right. Yeah, that's the key, is that you can get any one of those, you can get all of them. And there's a lot of, there's so much we haven't talked about. But for instance, but the question is block. So yes, straight up block is available. It's available over iSCSI. Also, in some cases, if you're on premises, if you need fiber channel, that's also available. So the answer is yes. And if you have more questions, give us a call. Just jump on the website and pop a few questions in, and we'd be happy to go through it.
Cool. Another question. It looks pricey. I think that's a good one. I like this question.
So when you say pricey, I think what you mean is it looks like there's a lot of value there, and you're wondering what does all that value cost. If you have a requirement, I don't know what to tell you other than it's a competitive marketplace, and when you look at what you get, that our customers are very, very happy with the value they get. That said, everybody's always interested in reducing their spend, and we're doing a lot of things in technology and storage to optimize your spend for you.
And we have online, for anybody who's interested, we have pricing calculators and price sheets you can go find on our website.
Yeah.
More information about our prices, they are organized in a cost per gigabyte, excuse me, per hour. Although that's not the way you're necessarily going to buy it. And that's why the configurator is so handy, because you can actually configure a solution that might resemble what you're trying to do. And then you'll get to see a total monthly cost, and you can decide for yourself whether it's pricey or not.
Right, and we like to think, and there are discounts available for longer terms. And the reason that I think that it's important that people look at that is because when you look at the especially things like the upgrade policy, is you really do need to start thinking in terms of, hey, I'm going to need storage forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see storage going away. So I want to get into an arrangement where I have storage forever, and that storage is always, up to date. It's always, and I don't go, and it's not just that you save money there, but you also don't go through the acquisition cycles.
Yes.
And the qualification, all that kind of stuff. That you just keep it there, and when you need updates, you just ask for them.
And the risk associated, not just the technology risk, but the financial risk associated with making those upgrades, hoping you're going to be profitable. I mean, we are talking to service providers today. Right. Let's just be clear.
And spinning up new services.
You're guaranteed profitability in a model like this, because you're only paying for what you use, and then presuming that you're reselling it at some kind of a profit. Yeah. I hope. We're all capitalists here, right? Then you're guaranteed profit. So keep in mind that when you look at our model, it lines up very well with your model. And so we know we're competitive. We have customers who use our service. They've used it in substitution for one of the large public clouds, won't say which one, and we're able to reduce their overall cost of storage drastically by 80% in some cases, because they could use a different mix of media.
Yeah.
They could use a storage performance package that worked well for their use case, rather than being stuck with what were the limited offerings.
Right. Well, that has, when we talk about, it can be block, it can be file, it can be object, it can be all flash, it can be mixed hard disk flash, it can be all hard disk. The idea, the point is that we give the MSP the tools and the choice to craft a solution with our solutions architects, to craft a solution that meets the business requirements. Right? It's not like, hey, you have to have all flash because that's what we do.
Yeah, it's that kind of flexibility that really is a hallmark. We have more questions coming in. I don't want to miss any. We may miss some, and I apologize, everybody.
Well, I saw one got withdrawn there. So, never mind, I found it.
Found it on the website, which is great. Thank you very much. There's a question here about backup software and what's included. Let's clarify. For those of you that saw the screen earlier, we do have certain backup software included as part of our package at Zadara, and that includes the backup to object storage. We have the remote mirroring, we have the clones, we have the multi-zone high availability. We do not include our third-party partner software, Veeam, Commvault, Zerto, Asigra.
Right.
We're partners with all of them. They're wonderful, and if you're already using one of those, we integrate.
Right. That's the thought, is that you may well have an existing relationship with one or more of those, and so it's a question of just sitting down together and figuring out what the services that you want to offer. Yeah. If you don't, we will be happy to help to make the introductions for you.
Right, exactly. That is separate. So in looking at one more question, there's a question about on-prem. Oh, good. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's do.
What components are included on-prem and which are in the cloud? And what is the recommended bandwidth? So let's take the bandwidth question separate.
Yeah. Bandwidth is always, and it depends.
Right? It is, exactly.
So let's leave bandwidth for a minute, and I'm not pushing that off. It's a very important conversation, but it's one I would like to defer to, probably a conversation with our solutions architects to understand your requirements. Right. But to the question of what's on-prem and what's in the cloud, it's the same, which is to say, if you do an on-prem environment, then the minimum footprint would be two. You always have to have at least 2 storage nodes, which are server-like things that have drives and have our software and the network
and controllers and
all the right. We ship the whole thing, right? It's a atomic unit, if you will.
And you need a rack and power.
You need a rack and a power and network connections.
Yep.
And then once we can get through that and get to the management interfaces, we work with your team to bring it up. The difference is if you're in the cloud, and you can be both, by the way, okay, but they stand, they can be interconnected and they can be integrated, but they also stand on their own. So what you have in your on-premises is an on-premises environment, and then if you also have or alternatively have a cloud environment, then you don't have the hardware that you don't see the hardware. It's living in our data centers, and but you still do the same things. You create the virtual private arrays, or we do, and you get to storage through iSCSI. So it's the same in both places, and there's no dependency between the two.
Right.
You can certainly replicate between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an important use case for disaster recovery and lots of other things too, actually.
Yeah, and with respect to the bandwidth, like you said, I think it's important to get into a detailed conversation with our solution architects about your use case requirements, because we see things that run the gamut. I mean, we have all kinds of.
Right, and it all depends what you mean. For instance, if you're on-prem and all your services are on-prem, well, then it's just whatever you need to get out to your services, right? Which is some local, it's a high speed Ethernet or potentially a fiber channel environment. If you're talking about accessing our cloud storage or providing storage services to your customers, then we have to go through and talk about what's really the requirements are.
All right, I said we would take about 10 minutes.
We've kind of went through that, yeah.
I want to thank everybody. If I've missed your question or haven't gotten to it, we will review this later, and we'll do our best to send answers out to everybody. Of course, I will remind you, please go to our website. You will find lots and lots of information there about our service, about our technology, about customers that have used our technology successfully, including many partners. And those case studies, I think, can be very helpful. And last, and it's on the screen, please reach out, take a free trial, engage with us. And see for yourself whether or not Zadara can be a good fit for you.
Operators are standing by.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
So give us a call and set up a free trial and let's talk about your requirements and what you think you want to do as a service provider.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We've enjoyed speaking about backup as a service, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye.